All right, welcome back to the Healthy Scratches podcast here on Vancouver Hockey Network. I'm Nicholas Hauka hosting today. We're without Andrew Wadden, but I'm still joined here by Jacob Fraser. Jake, how you doing, man?
Good. How are you?
Oh, doing better than the Canucks, that's for sure. It's not been a great year, as we kind of spoke on last episode, and we are midway through this Dallas game right now, 3-2 late here in the third period as we're kind of watching as we're recording this, and it's with a loss here, Jake, the Canucks might be officially mathematically eliminated from playoff contention.
Yeah, I think they'd have 4 games left, and they're 8 points back of the Minnesota Wild right now, and I'm not 100% sure, but I don't think they have the tie break in that, if that comes down to it. But I also don't think Minnesota's going to lose out either. So, yeah, it's frustrating to see. I mean, we've talked about it a few times already, but yeah, it's just been a very disappointing season for the team. They didn't live up near expectations. We've mentioned it a few times, but I think they're going to run away with the division this year. And boy, was I wrong. They're not even making playoffs. And so it's just, I guess, looking forward to next year. We just saw a look on the power play where they had Ratu, Mancini, couple of the young guys out there. Like, I like to see that because it's giving these young guys an opportunity to get reps in on power play units, penalty kill units, and just give them more ice time.
Let's go back for a sec. If I told you back in September, October, that this team was not going to even make the playoffs, let alone maybe you thought worst case scenario, maybe a first round exit, what would you have said back then? Because so much has happened to this point, and now this team isn't going to make the playoffs. A team that was 1 game away from going to the conference finals and beating the Edmonton Oilers, right? Who went to game 7. And yeah.
I mean, I would have thought Quinn Hughes went down 10 games into the season and it was a season ender or something. Like, it's been that bad of a year, I guess. Like, obviously no JT Miller for half the year. They decided to move on from him. All the challenges in the locker room, off ice, on ice with him. And, I just feel like I've said this a bunch as well. Like, everything went right last year, and this year it's the exact opposite. And that's the way hockey is. That's the way sports are. Not every year is going to be your year, but I really thought that this team was going to be able to build off of that. This was the first time we've seen them have playoff success since the bubble. And I mean, I know Andrew's not here, but he says that doesn't count. And, I tend to agree. They won 1 series in the bubble. They haven't had playoff success in so long. And so I really thought they were going to build off that, and they just have not been able to at all.
Yeah, and speaking of not being able to build off his success, ever since he signed that contract, Elias Pettersson has not been the same player. Goes into this year with very high expectations after having a bad playoff run with the team after that contract, and things have just got worse for him and worse for him. We're hearing reports that supposedly he might be out for the rest of the year. We're also seeing some reports that he might be day to day. So kind of up in the air, Jake. But if he doesn't play another game this year, is this the last game that Elias Pettersson will play as a Canuck? Do you think he gets moved?
Oh, I don't know. Management, Rutherford and Alvin, they've got a lot of work to do this summer. They're going to have to evaluate that and explore those options, because if there's a team that comes calling and says, hey, we'll give you some good pieces that can help you right now for Elias Pettersson, I wouldn't be surprised if they took that. But I don't know if I see anyone really coming to the table with enough to entice management to actually accept a deal. So I think we'll see him back next year. But yeah, I mean, it's got to happen. If they do move him, it's got to happen before July 1st, because then that no move kicks in. And so you don't really want to be in that situation. We saw how that went down with JT Miller this year. It makes a trade so much harder and just gives the team that you're trading with so much more leverage that you're not going to end up with the best deal possible. And so if if it does come down to it before July 1st, if they can get, I'd say, two pieces up front that can actually impact the team, maybe you do take it.
Yeah. Let's play be a GM mode here for a little bit, okay? I am the Alvin regime right now, the Rutherveen regime. I'm moving him. Honestly, like to me, he's had his chances and things are not going right for him. This seems to me like a player who needs a reset, just in general. I think I'm moving him. And I think obviously you got to do it before July 1st. I don't ever want to be in the JT Miller situation, right? This is obviously different circumstances, but this is a guy who is in a tough situation with how he feels he's being treated by the media, which I know we don't really agree with, but it kind of seems like he thinks that. The fan base is very hot and cold with him, and he doesn't really respond to that well. I feel like this is a guy that needs to be in a market that is very low key, not overly passionate. And I think maybe he can find his game in a situation like that. But I don't think that he's going to find his game here. That's my opinion. I think he's super talented and has all the ability to, but I think sometimes a franchise in a city just isn't a fit for a player. And I think this might be one of those cases. So let's say you're the GM, Jake. What are you doing in this situation?
Um, I mean, I completely get what you're saying. I don't think I disagree with it either. I don't know. Maybe I just am that rose color lenses guy that just still has faith in the player. But like I said, if one player that I'm really hoping the Canucks make a real push at this offseason is Mason McTavish. I think he can be a really good player. I don't think he's necessarily going to be a number one centerman, but I think he can be a really good number two. And so if a team like Anaheim, who I think would be a great fit for Pettersson, you were just saying like low key media wise, it's not a big hockey market, right? So I mean, if a team like Anaheim came calling and said, "Hey, we'll give you Mason McTavish and maybe another piece," I think I would be okay with them building a deal around that. I'm curious who if they did decide to move off of Pettersson, who would you want the Canucks to bring in?
For sure. Like, yeah, that's a good point. I think for who I would want to bring in, someone like McTavish, I think for sure. I think it also comes down to is Rick Tocchet going to be around, right? Because if he is, and he's here for the foreseeable future, which I think he's earned, this has been a situation in coaching hell pretty much for him all season long. And he did a pretty good job weathering the storm for quite a while. And ultimately, it's not turned out how this team thought things were going to go and what this franchise wanted. But I don't really think he was set up to succeed for the most part. Lots of roster turnover, injuries, everything like this. And I think more so roster construction should be the point of blame. That should be the emphasis here. So if Tocchet's the guy, someone like McTavish would probably suit what he wants to do better than Pettersson. So along those lines. Uh, One thing I'm wondering here is there's a lot of moves that this team needs to make in the forward group to get better, right? Not a Bennett. That's what I was going to get to next here, but a McTavish is one of those. After that, what do you do after that? Because you can't like Pius Suter's a free agent coming up, right? What do you do with this roster to make them competitive again? Because I think Canucks fans are kind of fed up with the inconsistency of this franchise. This is a city that loves its hockey. You see it all the time. You saw what the atmosphere was during the playoffs last year. It was electric. And even players that have left, like Zadorov, have said things along those lines, right? And ever since like 2013, 2014, this team has not had any success other than last year. So they need to find a way to get that quickly. And you know that ownership wants that too, right? So what do you do there, Jake? Do you overpay for a guy like Sam Bennett, who I mentioned a little bit earlier, along with McTavish, bring in two centermen like that, and then maybe try to create a PD and JT Miller light? You probably need another top six winger. Brock Besser is possibly gone. And if I was Brock, I'd probably be gone here. maybe let's walk it by step. What do you think? What are the first couple moves this team needs to do prior to the draft? What should their plan be?
Well, I think first of all, the decor I think is set. You've
Mhm.
got Quinn Hughes, Philip Hronik, Marcus Pettersson, Tyler Myers, and then you got the young guys all that are playing well. Mancini, Pettersson, Willander is probably coming. I mean, obviously it's not for sure, but there's a good feeling that he's going to be joining the team next season. So I think you don't need to focus on the decor at all. Goaltending, you're pretty set as well. You got Demko and Lankinen. It's all about the forward group this offseason. And you look at the team, you're just saying Besser might be coming off the books, assuming they don't re-sign him. Pius Suter. So you're losing that your good number 3 centerman, and probably, well, not probably, you're losing your best winger. So I think the way that this team is built right now, they have a lot of good middle 6 wingers. I think Connor Garland's a great middle 6 winger. I think Dakota Joshua can be a good third line winger. Kiefer Sherwood, Drew O'Connor. Like, these guys are good middle 6 wingers, but you don't have those top 6 guys that can really elevate your team and produce at a high level. So I think one of the first guys that I'd go after and be willing to overpay for in free agency would be Nikolai Ehlers. I think he can bring a lot to the team. He just scored his 40th goal, I think, against the Canucks or something like that, 40th of the season. But yeah, he's got, oh, sorry, no, not 40 on the season. But anyways, 24th, way off. But still, he's got 63 points in 67 games. He's having a great year, and I think that's a player that adds a lot of speed, a lot of offense to your top 6. Could be, if you do decide to keep Pettersson, could be a great winger with Pettersson and maybe Jake DeBrusk on that other side. And but yeah, like a Sam Bennett, they need to get more. They need to add more top 6 wingers, and they need to get more depth in their down the middle, right? So
Yeah.
there's guys like Ehlers available in the market, but after that, for wingers, I don't see a ton. I think you got to make a trade.
Yeah. And we'll get to that in a sec. But yeah, this team, I think they need some more size down the middle, and then they need some more speed on the wing, right? Team speed is a really big issue. You saw that come to the forefront a lot more before this decor was revitalized with the moves management made, right? And now it looks better because we can actually move the puck through the neutral zone. But prior to that, it wasn't looking so good. So more speed on the wing, more size in the middle. Now, to achieve that, trades need to be made. Jake, does that include the Canucks first round pick?
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about this a bit earlier, and so right now, as it sits, they've got the 15th overall pick. So I think back to the Montreal Canadiens trade when they traded 13th overall for Kirby Dach. I can really see something like that happening this year with the Canucks. They obviously want to build a contender right now. And to do that, you've got to bring in players that are ready to play in the NHL. And that 15th overall pick isn't going to be ready for a few years. This year's draft class just really isn't that great, especially in the mid to late teens. So yeah, I would say you dish that 15th overall pick and you bring in someone who can impact the roster immediately. And I don't think that 15 will necessarily get a deal done for the right guy, but I think it's a starting block. I think you can look to maybe trade the 15th overall pick for, say, like a Mason McTavish. You can use that 15th overall pick as the starting block, and maybe you throw in a future first or second, and then maybe a roster player right now. Obviously, Anaheim, they're starting to get to the tail end of that rebuild a little bit. They're starting to get more competitive. So they would probably want a younger roster player. A player that comes to mind for me is Niels Höglander. I think he could be a good piece in a deal to bring in a player like McTavish.
Absolutely. And I think now, with all the depth that you've accumulated defensively, especially if Willander takes the next step next season, you can move one of those guys too, right? To enhance your forward core, because that's what you need right now. You don't need 8 top 4 defensemen, right? That's a lovely luxury to have, but when your top 6 is hurting so much, that could be a piece too. First round pick with that defender, that could get you a pretty nice player within your top 6, right? And as we talked about, you're going to need to replace Brock Besser very likely, and maybe Elias Pettersson. So I think that's one of the steps that this management team needs to take moving forward to enhance this roster. And yeah, I think Canucks fans are probably just sick of this team kind of being stuck in this middle ground, right? This is kind of hell for NHL franchises. You want to be contending, you don't want to be pretending. And right in this realm of like 12 to 16, 17, that's exactly where that is, right? You're not really making the playoffs, or you're not a contender, and you're not getting high enough draft picks to get those generational players to turn your roster around quickly. So they need to find a way to get out of this very quickly. But let's not talk all negative here at what needs to happen. There have been a lot of positives here for the Canucks, despite not having the season they wanted to. Maybe one guy we should talk about a lot is the emergence of DP and what he's meant to this roster coming forward. This is a guy that is very quickly progressing and becoming an excellent player for them pretty rapidly. This is a guy that in preseason, Jake, we talked about it. He did not look ready to play in the NHL in the preseason. The game looked way too fast for him. He was turning the puck over a lot, and now he's solidified himself as a bottom 4 D-man for this team. And I think he's looked rock solid. He's physical. He can move the puck. We saw the other night with his first goal in the NHL. He has a little bit of offensive game too. Definitely not his strong suit, but it's there a little bit. He's a pretty complete player.
Yeah, I think at the start of the year, I thought he was maybe a year and a half away from making the jump, but he's like he's really developed quickly and really excelled at the AHL level, and then coming up to the NHL, I think the expectation was, okay, we'll give him a taste and then send him down, and he's earned his spot to be a full-time NHLer, and good on him. Like he's been great. I've really liked what I've seen. He's really poised with the puck. Like you said, he has some offense to his game. He can move the puck, and that's what the Canucks have been. Well, at the start of the year, they were looking for that desperately. They had big defensemen that could hit, but they couldn't move the puck. And he's a guy that he can run guys, and he can be that big 6'2" defensive defenseman, but he can also move the puck up the ice and make a breakout pass, unlike some of the other guys that were playing consistent minutes.
Vinny Desharnais.
Exactly. So
just had to get one more dig in. I'm sorry, Vinny. I'm sorry. I'm sure he's laughing making his millions of dollars a year. So I don't think he's too hurt.
Oh yeah, but exactly, like that's the kind of thing that the Canucks were missing, and he's really been a bright spot on what has been a pretty dark year for the team, I guess you could say. So yeah, I've been really impressed with his game, and I think next year, if he develops even more in the offseason, he could be a really legit top 4 guy as soon as next year.
Yeah. We've come a long way from talking about how Eric Brandstrom needs to be in the lineup, right? I'll never forget you, Eric. You're my favorite number 6 defenseman of all time. But yeah, and look, there's other pieces here too. Like Jonathan Lekkerimäki has looked a lot better lately. He's starting to look more comfortable. He's starting to look more confident, playing up to NHL speed. We've always known he's had that wicked shot, but the game doesn't look like it's too fast for him anymore. He's starting to progress too. If he takes a big leap forward next year, I know he just got sent down, right? But because he just got sent down, Jake, we were talking about this earlier today, he actually might be able to contend for a Calder Trophy potentially, right? So there are some pieces here. If this team rebuilds this top 6, they're going to need to have a very busy offseason and be very creative in ways of building that top 6. There are some good pieces here. Kiefer Sherwood has been a major bright spot for this team all year. Every single game that he's in, you notice him. He gives full effort. He's that gritty guy in your bottom 6 that contending teams need. He can score here and there for you as well and hit just everything you need. So there are some pieces here. I don't think it's all doom and gloom, despite I think how upset Canucks fans are. But there's a lot of work to be done. And this is just, we'll wrap everything up, obviously, in the upcoming weeks when the season's officially over. But this has been a very disappointing year, and I don't want to put too much of a damper on it because there are some positives here, and it's not looking very bleak like it did maybe 2019, 2020-ish for this roster.
Yeah, definitely. I think they've got, like you said, they've got a lot of work to do, but they definitely have the pieces. Drew O'Connor's another guy that, I mean, maybe he hasn't produced at a very high level or at the level that people would have hoped, but he's looking like he can be a contributor, and he's that guy that plays with a lot of speed, plays a heavy game, and so I think he would be a great playoff player as well for the Canucks. So yeah, they've got the pieces in the bottom six, they've got the pieces in net, they've got the pieces on D, but I think it's just about building up that top six to really turn them into something for other teams to worry about across the league.
Absolutely. There's been lots of changes this year. A nightmare year for the Canucks. Not quite over yet, so we'll be back next week to discuss kind of what's happened this week, if the Canucks are officially eliminated, what to look forward to, but we will be back with more here on the Healthy Scratches podcast. I'm Nicholas Hauka here with Jacob Fraser. Thanks for tuning in, guys.